The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we think it can criminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome to the show. It is Monday, October 21st, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for being here for our only studio show of this week. Tomorrow afternoon, I get on a plane. I'm on my way to Denver, Colorado for the Biennial Drug Policy Reform Conference, the International Reform Conference put on by the Drug Policy Alliance. I'll be covering there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, so our regularly scheduled shows will not be seen at this time. However, I will do my best to bring you as many videos and replays and interviews, and if I can, I will stream live from the conference, but I've kind of learned not to promise that at this point. Tune in and you'll either have a replay video or something coming on right here at this regular time. All right, on today's show, we do have a bunch of stuff to cover. Madeline Martinez from the world-famous Cannabis Cafe will be calling in at the end of the show. She's going to give us a preview of the upcoming Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards. We've been talking a little bit about it. We'll get her take on that, plus her take on the medical cannabis laws as they've been changing here in Oregon. There's a new law to legalize dispensaries in the state. We'll see what she thinks about that and how the Cannabis Cafe will evolve to meet those new laws. Also, it's our regularly scheduled interview with Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Cannabis Q&A. You can call in live to get your cannabis questions answered on science, history, culture, and health with respect to the marijuana plant. That will happen at 5:30. We'll have a live phone number, 971-533-7111, where you can call in or just get into our chat room at Ustream. You can type /login to log in and become a part of the chat. Also on today's show, I'm going to go behind the headlines. There is this kind of hilarious editorial op-ed in the Lexington Herald out there in Lexington, Kentucky. A cop with who's been a cop since LBJ was president has this anti-medical marijuana op-ed, and I just wanted to tear that apart and show you the 5 stupid new arguments that they're using against medical marijuana in this country. And then in hour 2, we'll have plenty of time to talk about all sorts of stuff, including an article out there that's getting a lot of play in the activist community about hemp not being the miracle crop, even if it's legalized. Kind of interesting analysis there. We'll take a look at that in hour 2.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow.
Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED Lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED Lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out lushledlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED Lighting. I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors, and I'd like you to check out one of our prime sponsors, the National Cannabis Coalition. I've been working with NCC since June of 2012, and I'm proud to be part of the team they have assembled. National Cannabis Coalition is building the partnerships with reformers, lawmakers, and industry we need to be successful. Visit the National Cannabis Coalition website at nationalcannabiscoalition.com or the easier-to-remember ncc420.com. That's where you'll get the exclusive first look at my radical rants, as well as informative articles from the nation's top cannabis pundits. Visit ncc420.com today, and if you have your phone handy, text Russ to 420-420 to support NCC and 420 Radio. It's a free text message that helps us help you end adult marijuana prohibition. Learn more at ncc420.com, and thanks for supporting independent marijuana legalization public radio. This is your 420 Radio News for Monday, October 21st, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Uruguay will sell legal marijuana for $1 per gram, official says. This from Huffington Post. Uruguay's drug czar says the country plans to sell legal marijuana for $1 per gram, though he's given higher figures in the past. A law already passed in the lower house of Congress and expected to pass in the Senate later this year would make Uruguay the first country in the world to license and enforce rules for the production, distribution, and sale of marijuana for adult consumers. The El País newspaper reported Sunday that drug chief Julio Calzada says marijuana sales should start in the second half of 2014 at a price of $1. He says the idea isn't to make money, but to wrench the market away from illegal dealers. Calzada said in August that the price would be around $2.50 per gram. Sales are for locals only. House explosion blamed on marijuana manufacturing process. 3 people charged, from the Denver Channel. Prosecutors have issued arrest warrants for 2 men accused of manufacturing marijuana in a home that exploded in August. The 2 men and a 7-year-old child were hurt in the explosion. Levi Allen, age 27, and Clayton Smith, age 27, are wanted on suspicion of child abuse, manufacturing marijuana concentrate, and arson. Prosecutors said Allen and Smith were attempting to manufacture marijuana concentrate inside a home on August 11 when an explosion blew out windows and appeared to lift the roof off of the home. The 7-year-old told investigators that the men were making, quote, oil that you use to smoke weed, end quote, when the explosion occurred, prosecutors said. Oregon towns prep for pot battle, from the Medford Mail Tribune. Oregon officials are only months away from accepting applications for the state's first medical marijuana dispensaries under a newly enacted law, but local leaders who want to keep pot shops out of their communities are clearing the ground for a fight. In Myrtle Creek, the town's police chief and mayor both opposed dispensaries within city limits. And in Medford, the city council made a rule change to say that business licenses could be revoked for violating the federal prohibition on the drug. Representative Peter Buckley, Democrat of Ashland, who shepherded the law through the legislature, said the Oregon Health Authority has final say over the dispensaries, not the cities and counties in which they are based. Denver City Councilwoman calls marijuana ordinance an attempt to nullify much of Amendment 64, from Forbes.com. Denver's proposed marijuana ordinance not only criminalizes smoking pot in your own backyard if other people can see or smell it, it also makes it illegal to possess or transport marijuana within any park, parkway, mountain park, or other recreational facility. In a recent interview with Westword, Denver City Councilwoman Susan Shepard agrees that the rule contradicts Amendment 64, Colorado's legalization initiative, which says transporting up to an ounce of marijuana, quote, shall not be an offense under Colorado law or the law of any locality within Colorado, end quote. Shepard notes that making it illegal to consume marijuana where others can see or smell it would affect not only porches, patios, and backyards, but also indoor spaces in condominium and apartment buildings. Quote, if you really said you couldn't consume on private property if others could detect the smell, she says, a condo owner would literally have no place in the city where they could consume legally, end quote. Shepard seems fairly confident that the more objectionable aspects of the ordinance, which is backed by Councilman Chris Nevitt and Mayor Michael Hancock, can be eliminated before it is enacted. Seattle thrift store finds 2.5 pounds of marijuana in donation bin, from K2.com. Seattle police released a lighthearted press release on Friday to remind the public of the rules after employees at a thrift store in North Seattle found a large bag of marijuana in the donation bin. Said the Seattle police, quote, donating to thrift shops is a terrific way to give a second life to your well-loved Velcro sneakers, keyboards, or flannel zebra pajamas, end quote. But they say tires, soiled mattresses, laptops, and bags of weed are not welcome. The garbage bag containing 2.5 pounds of pot was put into evidence, confiscated for destruction. And a reminder that this week it is the Drug Policy Alliance's biennial International Drug Reform Conference taking place October 23rd through 26th in Denver, Colorado. For more information, you can visit reformconference.org or visit drugpolicy.org for more details. This has been your 420 Radio News for Monday, October 21st, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines in Lexington, Kentucky, to debunk an op-ed from a 5-decade cop who thinks medical marijuana isn't really medical. We tackle those dumb arguments when we come back. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.
Приветствую. Меня зовут Дани Данько. Я редактор журнала High Times. Отвечаю за отдел культивации, или, проще говоря, выращивания. Приглашаем вас в Амстердам с 24 по 28 ноября, чтобы посетить ежегодный турнир Cannabis Cup, уже 26-й по счету. Там мы сравним множество видов марихуаны и гашиша из смежных кофешопов. Еще у нас там выставка товаров, семинары по выращиванию, ночные концерты и вручение премии за лучший в мире сорт марихуаны. Хотите получить 10% скидку со стоимости билета? Используйте промокод DANKO на сайте cannabiscup.com. Ждем вас!
Welcome back, everyone. Time for us to go behind the headlines, 15 after here, and wanted to talk about this op-ed piece we read in the Lexington Herald Leader. This was by a cop who's been on the job since LBJ was president, and it provides a perfect example of 5 of the latest dumb anti-medical marijuana talking points that are being spread through op-ed pages all around the country. I've read these in various incarnations. Let's just attack them right now. And these are quotes from the cop's op-ed. Medipot proponents would have you believe that the entire plant has medicinal benefit, when in fact, it is only a few cannabinoid compounds that have medical value. No, I'm sorry. Actually, this is, when CBD is concentrated into an oil, you know, like the little girl in the Sanjay Gupta documentary, then it's medicine. They can't deny that anymore. And when THC is synthesized into a concentrated pill called Marinol, it's medicine. They've accepted that for years. But when CBD and THC occur in much lower levels naturally in the plant, now it's a deadly dangerous drug with no medical value we can't possibly trust adults with? Right. Quote number 2. The largest percentage of cardholders is 18 to 34-year-olds who list stress and insomnia as their reason for their desire to chronically smoke dope. Less than 5% of cardholders in California are listed as chronically ill or have debilitating, life-threatening illnesses. Right, this is that medicine of last resort thinking. So, is the cop admitting that people with chronic or life-threatening illnesses are getting medical benefit for cannabis? Or that people with stress and insomnia shouldn't use medication? Or that people under the age of 35 don't get sick? Here's quote number 3. Teen usage rates far outpace the national average for youth 12 to 17 years of age in the Medipot states. Well, teenage usage rates in the Medipot states were already outpacing the national average long before they passed a medical marijuana law. And teen usage rates also have not increased in the Medipot states any more or less than the national trends. Quote number 4. Research has shown that smoking marijuana on a regular basis is not only harmful, but can actually lower the IQ of teen users by up to 8 points. Prohibitionists just can't let go of that 8-point IQ study, despite the fact it was immediately refuted when a researcher showed that the IQ drop was just as likely attributable to poverty. So, is it the cop's point that we can't allow adults with cancer, AIDS, and epilepsy to use cannabis because some teenager someday might smoke a joint and be a little dumber? And number 5, quote, I can assure you that the marijuana that existed at the beginning of my career is not the same as the marijuana that's available today. Oh, yes. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. Well, all right. If that weed was so much less harmful, could we just legalize that now? And you know, like a near beer or something, right? And any weed below 10%, perfectly legal. And why are we worried about marijuana naturally being up to 30% THC? And I'd like to see some of that 30% THC, by the way. Why are we worried about that when Marinol pills of 100% potency are completely legal with a prescription? Once again, all this op-ed does is to show us the power of marijuana to addle the brains of those who do not use it. This cop is fighting against this, and they continue to bring up this idea as if medical marijuana is just a trick, that we're just somehow tricking people in order to get marijuana legalized. Now, you can make all sorts of claims about the tactics or the strategies that the marijuana movement has used to try to get marijuana passed. But aside from that, whether or not it's a Trojan horse, whether or not it's the camel's nose under the tent or whatever metaphor they want to use for it, you cannot deny the medical efficacy of the whole plant itself. Nobody can deny that. People have seen it with their own eyes now. They've seen little Charlotte on the Dr. Sanjay Gupta show. They've seen it in their own experiences, and they've seen it in the medical marijuana states. Now the question is, why do we keep just limiting it to the sick people? Get it to the rest of us, and maybe we wouldn't all be so sick.
This did not make sense.
I know. All right, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with Daily Toker Tunes.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man. Let him bring in the beat.
Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, The Russ Belville Show, Ganja John, and Cascadia Concentrates, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Adam's meticulous designs are individually crafted and screened in vibrant, high-definition color. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Let him bring in the beat.
Are you or is someone you know a marijuana smoker? Have you or is someone in your family been arrested for a marijuana violation? You need to know the truth about pot. NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, is the most comprehensive source of information regarding marijuana and its effects on health, as well as legal issues. NORML even offers a database of lawyers specializing in cannabis in your area. NORML, the nation's largest and most successful marijuana law reform organization, has spent decades gathering the knowledge and science on everything related to cannabis. NORML is the best resource to find out the truth about marijuana, connect with a lawyer in your area, or help find an end to prohibition. Information is available at norml.org, that's NORML.org, or toll free at 888-67-NORML.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Roots Monday, featuring the blues, country, folk, and jazz music that birthed the modern sounds we enjoy today. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, today's Daily Toker Tune comes to us from our good friend Bacon Dan, and I don't know if I got him on the line or not. Are you there, Dan?
I am here.
Oh, fantastic. Glad to get you here. I already know so much about the next artist that I could intro the song myself, but I'll let you go ahead and give word to one of my favorites.
All right. Well, today we're going with Belville and the Flecktones. I am a major fan of Belville Fleck for a number of years. For those who don't know, Belville Fleck plays the electric banjo. Him and the Flecktones have been touring for so many years now. Really started getting moving in the early 90s. The song today is The Sinister Minister, which is one of their, most famous songs. The song means a ton to me, and it's just a phenomenal song. And on a really cool note, the lineup in this recording of The Sinister Minister of Belville Fleck and the Flecktones, the original lineup of the Flecktones is back now. Jeff, the sax player who was with them for years, went off on his own. They brought back the original guys, so it's kind of cool having, the original Flecktones back. Of course, Vic Wooten's the bassist, and his brother Future Man plays the electric drum tar, which is
the drum axe, the Synthax. I think it's called the Synthax Drumitar.
That's right. You're very good at it.
Yeah, the Flecktones are a sight to behold. All of them are monster musicians, and the kind of guys that even when you're watching them play, you can't believe what you're hearing.
Oh, absolutely. And very cool enough, I found out that Vic Wooten plays a lot here in Portland, as does Future Man. So hoping next time they make their way through here, I can catch them, because I got to see them live 3 times now, and each time I left there with my jaw on the floor, just amazed at what I saw and heard.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. They played out at the zoo a while back, too. I think it was last year. So let's get right to it. This is Belville Fleck and the Flecktones with The Sinister Minister. And Bacon Dan, thanks for calling in.
Thank you, sir.
From the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs. We've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs. We've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up. We've got a great late-night lineup at 10 p.m. Pacific weekdays here at 420radio.org. But if you missed any of those shows, you can catch their replays early Saturday morning, beginning at 6 a.m. with the Drug Truth Network. At 7 a.m., Cannabis Cure TV. At 8 a.m., Green Stream Podcast. And at 9 a.m., Hemp Beach TV. Right here on 420radio.org.
It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Earlywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and a leading author and researcher on cannabinoids and health, who pins the Ask Dr. Mitch column for High Times magazine. Get your questions ready in our live chat or call in to 971-533-7111 now.
All right, everybody, welcome back, and time for our regular Monday visit with Dr. Mitch. How you doing?
Doing great.
All right, glad to have you here. We always start off by reminding folks that you can call in at 971-533-7111, or you can get into our chat room at Ustream. Just type /login to create an account and to join us. And Dr. Mitch always gets the first word to let us know what's the latest in the world of cannabis science.
A new paper out of the University of Kentucky has a really neat work with animals where they're using cannabidiol transdermally. They have a gel that they spread on the skin of these rodents, and then it's protective against basically some alcohol-induced neurodegeneration. I want to head this off at the pass, though. I don't think that smoking high CBD strains is the way to get away with binge drinking. Okay. We do see some amazing results here. At one of the brain sites, there was literally almost a 50% reduction in the neurodegeneration with the 5% CBD gel. But again, binge drinking is for chumps. There's so much great cannabis in the world. Please don't drink too much alcohol.
Yeah, I cringe sometimes thinking about my teenage years when I was binge drinking like crazy. It was kind of a contest. You always wanted to see how fast or how much or in what crazy way you could drink. And looking back now, I really wish I'd have been using cannabis instead.
I got to admit, we've all had our rough days, and let's hope everybody takes advantage of these new data in a way that we didn't.
All right. We've got some questions coming in from the chat room. Randy Brush has a good one. Wants to know, do you think law enforcers are mad because they're losing the war on drugs to drug users?
Obviously, the only ones I talk to are a select sample, but everyone I've talked to has sensed that they're actually going to get better use of their time. A local pot bust that's for a small amount, unless you're really an irritating Machiavellian meanie, it just doesn't seem like the kind of thing that most people sign on for law enforcement to do.
Yeah, I hope so. It just seems a little ridiculous to me. Let's check some other questions here. Dolink is asking, any precautions for cannabis abstention before or after surgery? Like, is there any effect on bleeding time, increase in bleeding, healing, anything like that?
We haven't seen a ton of data except for essentially if scar tissue or stitches are exposed to smoke itself, that can be a potential irritant. So you certainly don't want to smoke and blow smoke into your stitches.
Okay. Be careful with that. Now, I've been doing some stories recently where I kind of bookmarked them, and I wanted to get your feeling on these things as well. And this most recent one comes out of, it was an Irish newspaper out of the Independent in Ireland, and it says, high-potency cannabis is putting young people who use the drug heavily at risk of stroke. Oh, my God. So what are they basing this off of, and what is, if any, the stroke risk of using cannabis?
It's curious because when you think about, basically how many people there are in the world and how many people get strokes in the world, you would actually expect there to be more cannabis-related strokes than there are. However, there have been a couple of cases over there in Ireland that were folks who were markedly younger than your average person getting a stroke. So I think one guy was only 33, but we're not talking about teenage kids. I'm apprehensive about interpreting this in part because it's just a couple of cases. And anytime we have just a couple of cases, literally anything could happen. And I'm actually concerned about folks who may not be reporting stimulant abuse, which has been linked to stroke pretty extensively. So the bottom line here, I think, is we have to interpret this with real caution. One of the things that they mentioned in that article was that they thought that blood vessels were grossly thickened in the case where this guy had a stroke, and I can't recall any other data from cannabis grossly thickening anybody's blood vessels. So I feel like this may be a person who unfortunately was born with a risk for stroke and may have coincidentally ended up having a stroke close to the time he used cannabis. We do have some legendary cannabis increases in heart rate that might have contributed, but we're talking about a pretty low base rate kind of phenomenon.
Okay, so pretty much typical UK kind of reefer madness then?
I'm afraid so. I mean, and again, don't take 2 Adderall, drink 40 coffee, and then hold your hits really long. I'm not sure what else to say. This is just general good anti-stroke behavior.
All right. We've been reporting on your attempts to do research on the effects of cannabis use and menopause, and most recently a survey that you've put together. Lively Libra in our chat room would like to know, what's your target sample size, and are we close to reaching it?
Unfortunately, the response has been a little limited. I realize this is not everybody's target set of symptoms. We've been really grateful to the few people who've responded on Facebook, and we've also gone to Craigslist in a couple of different areas. If anybody who is willing would email me at the 420research@gmail.com email, I'm happy to send the link. We also have, both Lively Libra and I have the link right on our Facebook pages. Hoping to get at least 50 people. Unfortunately, we're not even halfway there yet, so maybe we don't have a lot of appropriately aged women listening to the show. But if you know anybody who might qualify, I'd really appreciate you passing it along.
I will pass this along to Madeline Martinez in our next interview, and her entire group of folks. I'm sure they'll get that information out, and we'll get you some more survey responses.
Well, I can't speak for Lively Libra, but I, for one, am extremely grateful.
Yes, yes. All right. Here's another story that came through the news since the last time we spoke. Fox reported on this, so be ready. It was called Possible Treatment for Marijuana Abuse Found, and it was a study on kynurenic acid that supposedly blunts the rewarding effects of THC. We've talked about this in previous attempts of, I think it was the French, to make a anti-appetite drug, and it didn't turn out so well. What do you know about this kynurenic acid treatment?
So, I mean, anything with the name acid in its name always gives me a little bit of pause. As it turns out, the efforts to sort of block a receptor in order to keep people from taking a drug that then stimulates that receptor has been, quasi-helpful with the opiates, and then not particularly helpful with a lot of other drugs. And as we saw with it was a weight loss drug released in Europe that blocked the CB1 receptor. It was basically making people suicidally depressed. I mean, we don't have the CB1 receptor by accident, and just blocking it willy-nilly is not a great idea. When you think about the dangers of cannabis dependence, and those horrible withdrawal symptoms like decrease in appetite, I think some crazy pharmaceutical drug is bound to be markedly more harmful than one that has a 5,000-year history of safety.
Yeah, it reminded me of a story we did a couple of years ago where they had found out that lithium could help people kick marijuana.
Again, that just breaks my heart. I mean, here's a drug with some of the nastiest side effects ever, and unless you're having outrageous manic episodes, you really want to stay away from it.
Yeah. All right, there's another story. Before we go on, though, a follow-up on the menopause research. Gothic Prophet follows up, wants to know, is there some way anyone could participate in that survey that doesn't have access to the Internet, knows a lot of women in the target range, but they're not really on the Internet?
I would gladly email that person copies of the survey if I could at least just get me an email address. Otherwise, I'd be happy to mail things if anyone wants to just get in touch and have me mail something. I think that'd be fine too.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find a way to make that happen. Just email 420research@gmail.com, and maybe, Dr. Mitch emails you the survey questions. You print them out for the ladies. They fill them out by hand. You enter them. I mean, there's got to be a way to get this done. All right, let's take a look. One other study here, and by the way, we're still taking questions here, but running a little bit out of time, so make sure to get them in as quick as you can. But this study that came across, and it was reported on the Seattle Post-Intelligencer last week, that headline was "Marijuana Involved in Fewer Fatal Wrecks Than Other Drugs." And it's Dr. Guoha Lee studying this, and they found that compared to narcotics, stimulants, depressants, and especially alcohol, marijuana had the lowest odds risk for a crash. What do you think of this data, and what does it tell us?
In fact, we've had data comparable to this where folks drove in a car high in Amsterdam. Roby had these data out in the late 90s, and what we've seen is essentially folks who are using cannabis and driving. First of all, they're rather reluctant to drive in the first place, but they were sort of forced to in this lab setting, and they were less likely to try to pass other cars. They were much more likely to have a good stopping distance when they saw a stop sign. They were much better than folks who had alcohol when it came to things like trying to drive fast or tailgating or any of those things. The one area where they do seem to have a problem is that staying right down the center of the lane. And it wasn't like they were swerving all over the place. They just weren't particularly good relative to the placebo group. And I feel like, no one should drive impaired in any way, whether it's Benadryl or not enough sleep or too much cannabis or anything like that. But as we can see from this data and that study you just mentioned, this is not an outrageously high-risk thing when you compare it to a lot of the other contributors to driving. But what I suggest, given the way that people drive, is they leave more space between their car and the car in front of them. They have more stopping distance. They go slower. Don't drive high, but drive as if you were.
There you go. And one thing that wasn't covered in this study, but I always like to bring up, is that we can also calculate odds risk for non-drug related activities, and that we find things like, distracted driving, being tired, can be, even being over the age of 60 can be greater causes of accident, or greater correlation of accident risk.
In the early 2000s, there was a link between cigarette smoking and accidents, and it wasn't that nicotine impairs you. It was that people were getting ashes in their lap and looking down and suddenly wrecking.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors to consider here. It's a very, very complex issue. All right, well, folks, if you didn't get the chance to get your question in, I'm afraid we're out of time, but you can always visit our contact page at 420radio.org/contact, or email Dr. Mitch directly at 420research@gmail.com. I'm headed off to Denver for the Drug Policy Conference. Are you attending that conference, Dr. Mitch?
Alas, my wife has said I need to be in town a few weekends in a row. The normal board meeting was just last weekend, and it seemed a little rough to go for yet another conference, but do give everybody there my best.
Understood. And is there anything you can report to us from the normal board meeting?
Well, everybody's thrilled that Paul Armentano is getting that Drug Policy Alliance award, and it looks like the revenue that's generated from the normal website is actually bound to increase thanks to everybody's participation and just going to the website and things like that. The advertising revenues have potential to go up, and we're also going to have our lawyer friends chip in a little more for being listed there. And otherwise, it was just a much less contentious one, a really friendly one, and it seemed like Normal's headed towards some really great things in 2013.
All right, looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing all the Normal folks in Key West. And Dr. Mitch, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
When we come back, we've got Madeline Martinez from the world-famous Cannabis Cafe talking about the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? the best destinations for a ganja getaway, how to hide herb in your car, whether to grow your own, how precisely to legalize it, or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place. Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook rolls all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more.
Somebody has to say something.
What makes something funny? How does humor impact health and psychological well-being? How can you incorporate humor into everyday life? A concise, reader-friendly introduction to an important but often underappreciated topic in modern psychology, Humor 101 explains the role of comedy, jokes, and wit in the sciences and discusses why they are so important to understand. Psychology professor Dr. Mitch Earlywine draws from his personal experiences in stand-up comedy to focus on how humor can regulate emotion, reduce anxiety, and diffuse tense situations, expose pretensions, build personal relationships, and much more. He irreverently debunks the pseudoscience on the topic of humor and leaves readers not only funnier, but better informed. It's part of the Psych 101 series from Springer Publishing, Humor 101 by Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D.
Hey, man. Am I driving okay?
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while. Share.
I think we're parked. Take a little trip, take a little trip, take a little trip and see.
Our next guest on A Different View is brought to you by the Normal Women's Alliance, a nonpartisan coalition of socially and geographically diverse women who believe that marijuana prohibition is a self-destructive and hypocritical policy that undermines the American family. They bring a contemporary approach to the policy debate and are proudly representing the interests of modern mainstream women who believe in legalizing marijuana. Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Well, welcome back, everybody. You can't say we're not doing it live here at 420 Radio. Unfortunately, I have a last-minute cancellation here from Madeline. She's stuck in a board meeting. She called me, actually, on the phone while I was talking to Dr. Mitch. So she's unable to make it out of the board meeting to join us today. But I did want to get this picture up of myself and Madeline Martinez. This is from April of 2007. That's us standing in front of the Bush White House in Washington, D.C., shortly before we both smoked a joint. So I had to get that picture up. But Madeline was coming on to remind us about the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards. They're taking place here on December 7th in Portland at the World Famous Cannabis Cafe. For more information, check out World Famous Cannabis Cafe on Facebook. They've got all the info up there. They still have room for judges and entrants. So if you want to get involved, this is the one that's very limited. It's only 28 entries that they've got and 28 judges. So you want to get them as soon as you can. And they now have a concentrates category. That's the first time they've done that, for the Medical Cannabis Awards. You definitely want to get involved if you're, concentrate manufacturer here in the state of Oregon. It is limited to patients, caregivers and growers in the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program. You do have to be a card holder to participate. Again, go to World Famous Cannabis Cafe on Facebook if you want to find out more information. If you've been listening to the show, I've described this event. It's more than just like a cannabis awards or judging competition. Unlike any other, they give the judges their samples a month before the awards, so everyone has plenty of time to sample them. There's only 28 samples. It's a complete double-blind, bar-coded, bubble sheet, laser-scanned, 20-foot projection screen scoring system going on. If you've never seen it, it's really amazing. And the day that it takes place, there's also a wonderful little vending fair, usually a hemp fashion show, some speakers, and then that evening a dinner for the awards and also awards to some of the activists in the community who deserve recognition for the past year's work. So check that out. Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards going on over a decade now. Information available at the world famous Cannabis Cafe. That, of course, means we have a little bit of extra time here in the show.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
There is a story that was published today on Modern Farmer that is making the rounds, and it's angering a lot of activists in the marijuana community, and unfortunately, I wish it didn't. I wish they had more my attitude toward it, which is, it's about damn time we debunked some of our own BS. And, you know, this is something that I think is really important in the movement, is that when we come forth with the arguments that are going to get, first of all, marijuana legalized and get hemp legalized, but second of all, arguments that are easily defensible, arguments that are not pie in the sky dreamer type of arguments here. And in the world of hemp, some of these arguments exist. Now, let me start with his article, and we'll talk a little bit about it. His article is called "Why Legalized Hemp Will Not Be a Miracle Crop." It's by Dan Mitchell, writing in Modern Farmer, modernfarmer.com. And he opens with this: "There has never been a good reason for the ban on industrial hemp. It's no more harmful than industrial switchgrass, or industrial lumber for that matter. But at the same time, the claims of hemp activists are often overblown." And right there in the opening paragraph, I think that sets the perfect tone. Because for me, the whole argument about hemp begins and ends with the fact that it's a crop, not a drug. There's no good reason to ban it. Now, if indeed hemp is this wonderful fuel and food and fiber, which we all know it is, right? But even if it weren't, there's no good reason to ban it. And I worry about, cementing our arguments onto some of these wild claims that are sometimes taken out of context and sometimes overblown, because then the argument and the debate becomes not about whether it's stupid to ban a crop. The argument becomes about whether or not our claims were true. And it doesn't matter whether our claims are true with respect to hemp. It matters whether or not it makes any sense to ban it as a crop. Let's not get distracted by all of the wild claims. Now, these wild claims that are listed, some of these are listed in this Modern Farmer article, and let me get to some of it here. It says, "It seems likely that a thriving hemp market will finally develop here, but thriving doesn't mean huge. Not by a long shot. Worldwide, only about 200,000 acres of land were devoted to hemp cultivation in 2011, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, with that number being flat to decreasing in recent years in 30 countries where hemp is cultivated. 200,000 acres in the entire world devoted to hemp, even though hemp is legal in 30 countries. China has legal hemp, but worldwide, 200,000 acres. Meanwhile, in North Dakota alone, flax was harvested from more than 315,000 acres. So flax, there's more flax grown in North Dakota than hemp grown in the entire world. And for further perspective, they say, consider that corn is planted on 85 million acres in the United States. Now, That's not necessarily a good stat, I think, because that tells us more about how much we're addicted to corn syrup than, anything about whether we should be planting that much corn. But this addresses something that I've always wondered about the hemp argument. And that is, if it's everything that hemp proponents say that it is, why isn't China taking advantage of all of that? And oftentimes the response gets us into the land of conspiracy theories. And, well, the oil companies don't want the competition and the plastics don't want the competition. But if there's one thing that I believe about oil companies is that they will make a buck wherever they can make a buck. In fact, oil companies have been pretty highly invested in solar and wind and other forms of alternative energy as well. It's a whole lot easier for them to buy up and dominate a market that might be a competitor than it would be to try to go through a big political scheme to ban it. If hemp is capable of producing as much energy as we believe it can, energy companies should be all over that. But there's other problems. There's other obstacles that are in the way. Obstacles that will go away once we get it legalized. But to say that suddenly legalizing it will miraculously create all these things without addressing the context in which it has to happen. For example, we often talk about how hemp can produce biodiesel, which is absolutely true. And when I talk about it, I like to point out how any diesel engine could run on hemp seed oil, which is also true. But I always limit my remarks to having the U.S. Tractor trailer trucks using diesel, using the biodiesel. Because I know it's not realistic to think that every car in America is going to give up gasoline and suddenly become a biodiesel car. That's just, it's great that it'll run on diesel, but not everybody's driving a diesel car. How are we going to get diesel cars in everyone's hands? And arguments about the paper. This is another classic argument that we've heard many times in the marijuana movement is 1 acre of hemp is equal to 4 acres of trees for paper. Which is true, but it ignores the context of 1 acre of hemp planted on prime farmland and irrigated is equal to 4 acres of trees that can grow places that are not prime farmland and don't require irrigation. And it also ignores the processing costs and other factors that currently make wood pulp paper far cheaper and easier to make than hemp paper. And again, if hemp paper were going to be the solution to everything, why isn't Canada printing all their stuff on hemp paper right now? Why isn't China? Why aren't kids into, and the argument goes for hemp can make such great foodstuffs. Absolutely true. The hemp seed is a very digestible food protein. So why aren't Chinese kids growing up eating a lot of hemp gruel? But this is the thing is like, I know that marijuana being illegal and America banning hemp has some effect on this demand in this marketplace, but it can't have such an overarching effect that companies in Europe that might want to make a buck off of hemp, if all the things we said about hemp were true, they'd be growing it like crazy in Belgium and in France and all these places where they could make a buck on it. That's the problem I have with this hemp can save the planet argumentation, is it lends to our opponents the ability to kind of paint us as these starry-eyed, unrealistic dreamers, when the argument doesn't need to be any more sophisticated than it's not a drug. That's all we need to say. It's not a drug. There's no point in banning hemp. We're going to take this an hour or two. We'll talk more about this article because I've seen a lot of people respond to it and gotten very angry about it. And I think they're missing the forest for the trees. I think sometimes on our side we have this knee-jerk reaction because we've dealt with so much reefer madness from prohibitionists and cops for so many years that we fail to see our own shortcomings and hyperbole and vigorously defend them like we were attacking reefer madness. Let's get our own house in order. Let's make sure our own arguments are unassailable. That's all the time we got for Hour 1. Stay tuned for Hour 2. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow